What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video I just want to talk to you guys a bit about how you scale essence drain in 3.0, at least with the changes that we have so far, because right now we have two new skill gems you'll use in your setup, Decay and Efficacy, and we have one skill that we're leaving out, and that's slower projectiles. And that is because it has been made so that projectile damage no longer scales the dot damage of essence drain. So that's a waste to focus on that, also in the skill tree. So you save a few points by not picking that up, and you save as support gem link for it. So the first thing I did was just to add some average gear stuff. It's decent, good items, but it's not mirror items or anything like that. So it should still give like a reasonable image of the numbers that we're able to get. And then I wanted to figure out what is the optimal support gem setup for essence drain. And the first thing you add in is Decay. Decay is that new support gem that adds a flat amount of chaos damage and applies the Decay that deals damage over time. It is scaled via chaos and damage over time. And it is very, very effective when it comes to dealing with the first target you hit. The Decay won't spread to other monsters via your contagion, but it still makes a massive difference for the first target you kill. Also because it means the first target will die faster, which means that there will be more time for the dot to deal damage on nearby enemies than when it's then spread. So it is an indirect damage boost to your surroundings too. It's probably also worth mentioning that Decay requires a hit to be applied. And that's why you can't just use Contagion linked with Decay. It requires that hit to be applied. And also it doesn't stack with the Delirium craft that you can put on. Then we have Void Manipulation. And Void Manipulation is great because it scales both the damage of Essence Drain and Decay. And you guys can see the damage numbers here. This is the dot DPS from Essence Drain, and this is the Decay DPS. So these two needs to be added up. So if we disable Void Manipulation, you can see both of them are affected by this. So Void Manipulation is really, really good. Same thing for Rapid Decay. It scales both of them, so you want that too. Then we get to something like Efficacy, which gives you more spell damage and it gives you more damage over time. And that is really, really powerful for this setup too. It influences both Decay and dot DPS again. And then you get to the sixth choice you have to make here. And normally before you would use something like slower projectiles or empower, or you could also have controlled destruction. But slower projectiles, as I said, as you guys can see, it doesn't do anything really for us. It increases the average hit, but we don't care about that. We want dot DPS. That's the main point of this build, right? Scaling dot damage. So slower projectiles is RIP. You don't want to use that anymore. Poison, yeah, it's just not worth it. It doesn't scale probably if you use poison like this. Not if you're using Consuming Dark either, which by the way does not have increased spell damage anymore, but increased fire damage now. So it's even weaker in that sense. So it really comes down to Controlled Destruction and Empower. And if we look at the numbers, then we can see that if we put Empower here at level 3 and Controlled Destruction at level 20 first of all, the thing that is with Controlled Destruction, it gives a really, really significant boost to your dot DPS, but it has no influence on your Decay DPS. It does not scale damage over time or chaos damage. It increases your spell damage, so it is only Essence Drain, the Essence Drain dot portion that it scales. The same thing goes for Empower. It will also only increase your dot DPS. So if you have an Empower level 3 versus a level 20 Controlled Destruction, then Controlled Destruction simply gives more damage than the Empower. It gives, as you guys can see, this is with Empower 80,000 and Controlled Destruction 85,000. However, if you have an Empower level 4, then as you can see with Controlled 85 and level 4 89. So until you get an Empower level 4 for your 6th link, Controlled Destruction is going to be more powerful if it is damage that you want at least. Then we of course also using Wither. Wither is still a massive damage boost, and you guys can see this here. It makes a big difference. And Flame Golem to increase the damage too. If we look at the items, I did a lot of experimentation with this. I was trying to figure out what would be the highest DPS, and I was looking at 2 times Breath of the Council because it increases chaos damage, so it would work both for the Decay and for your dot DPS. I also tried Consuming Dark, looking into that, and the poison, it doesn't work, it doesn't look very good. And you know, just random rare stuff. But eventually I settled on a 3+ Chaos Staff. That seems to be the setup that deals the most damage. So +1 to level of Socket Gems and 2+ to level of Chaos Gems. And if you're lucky, you can get some spell damage on it too, which will scale the dot damage but not decay damage, right? So if you want max damage for your items, this seems to be the way to go, the 3+ to chaos here. And this leaves us with this number here. You also want to pick up Witchfire Brew. It makes a very significant difference. And Sorrow of the Divine is pretty good too. Very cheap too. All of the other items here, except for the jewels and the rings, has no influence on the damage of the setup. The rings have the what's the craft called? Well, you can see increased chaos damage, essence crafting on them, and the jewels all have like increased chaos and damage over time, because that's how you most effectively scale both decay and dot DPS. And if you look at the skill tree, or if we take a look at the skill tree, I decided to play this as an Ascendant. And if you play it as an Ascendant, then there is no choice. You need to pick up the Occultist, at least if you're playing as CI, or at least in some way can use or benefit from Energy Shield. The Occultist is unrivaled when it comes to damage as the Ascendant. If we take a look at the number here, you can see 89 and 69 here. And if we turn this off, it's a pretty significant damage boost you get by being the Occultist, because you get 20% increased damage if you've killed a cursed enemy recently, and enemies you curse have -15 to chaos resistance. That's pretty good. You could also go full Occultist, but the problem with going full Occultist is that you have Profane Bloom, and some like it, some really hate it, because Profane Bloom will prevent your contagion from spreading further. So when they explode, it stops the explosion of, or the spread of contagion. But it has -20 to chaos resistance, but it's only 5 points more, and I guess it would save you some points here of picking up Whispers of Doom if you did that. Wicked Ward is really good too. But I decided on Ascendant. And then together with the Ascendant, there's a few choices, but I think something like the Trickster here is pretty solid. Faster recovery rate of mana, life, and energy shield if you've killed recently, or something affected by a dot. That's pretty nice if you're relying on regen. You also get 20% more damage while not in full energy shield, and 15 flat mana regenerated per second if you've used a movement skill recently, and you kind of do that all the time. And 15 mana regenerated per second is actually equivalent to, I think it's a level 16 clarity. So it is pretty significant. And if you guys have played Essence Drain builds before, you know that mana regen is a pain in the ass, and it gets to be one of those things you have to spend a few extra skill points to make work. You still do that in this build, but now you have something to scale it even more with the mana regen. So I think Trickster and Occultist is pretty solid. You could also do Occultist and Pathfinder for extra movement speed, damage while using a flask, and then do not consume things. But besides this, you're also getting 5 additional skill points, which makes the entire build easier to set up. So passive point here, and passive point 3 here. That's 3 points. And then if you go into Path of the Shadow, you get 2 additional points, and it saves you some points because it allows you to save the points you would otherwise have had to use on pathing out of this tree. So I think the Ascendant is a really good choice for this. But there is of course other alternatives. This is not the only build you can do, of course, in no way. But this is just when playing it as an Ascendant and we're trying to maximize the damage here. As you guys can see, we're no longer picking up projectile damage. It's not really worth it here. We're still picking up damage over time and chaos nodes here. Atrophy and going up towards corruption. I'm dual cursing because then I can use Enfeeble and Witchfire Brew to survive. And I am playing it as a CI build. And with mediocre gear, like nothing too heavily invested and no shield, I'm at 7,586 shield, which I think is fairly good, as long as you use a Vault Discipline to help you survive in those very tense moments. But if you use the shield, you could probably get to 10,000 energy shield and it wouldn't be too much of an issue. I think Essence Drain is in a pretty good spot right now. But I'm not sure it's going to have the same damage very, very late game as it had before. Just because it's not going to scale the same way. You can't poison properly with it anymore and things like that. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show you guys. Come visit me at my Twitch stream. I stream almost every day. The link is below in the description. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?